Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about structuring engineering teams. Not so much organizational structure, but focusing on the makeup of individual teams. What size should they be, and how should they be made up? In order to speak about this, I did some industry research, and I looked at Stripe, Uber, and Bloom & Wild. I haven't worked for these companies, but I picked them because there's much documented about them online. So for Stripe and Uber, I read what Will Larson had to say about the topic. And he's been an engineering leader at both Uber and Stripe. And he did a great interview at First Round, which I'll link below. He talked about many things, so I definitely recommend reading that. But one of the things he touches on is team size and structure. And in that, he recommends 6 to 8 engineers as the sweet spot for team size. And that's both for the benefit of the engineers and also the manager. And he gives a number of reasons for that, which I'll go into later on. I also watched a talk by Stephen Janaway, who is Bloom & Wild's VP of Engineering. Now, the talk is from 2019, so it's probably a bit out of date now, but I think the principles in that are still very, very relevant. And again, in that talk, he covers many topics, so I definitely recommend watching that. I'll link to it below. But he goes into quite a lot of detail on the team size and structure of Bloom & Wild's engineering team. He shows this slide, which I'll put up on screen, and you can see that there are 3 teams at the time of the talk, and they have roughly 5 engineers and 1 tester in each team. They also have 1 engineering manager and a product manager, which is pretty standard. So in my personal experience, which is limited, I've only been an engineering manager for a year. But in my experience, I agree with 5 to 8 being the ideal team size. So I'll talk about that. But also I wanted to give some nuance, which I wasn't able to find in my research about team composition and also differences in team size in different circumstances. So the first thing is, if you have a cross-functional team with no specialization, there tends to be a stronger power law. So what I mean by that is, if you have a team where everyone works on the front end, everyone works on the back end, everyone works on the project together, there's no boundaries between the team, it tends to have a stronger power law. So you have 1 or 2 engineers are massively more productive than, or significantly more productive than, other team members. So in that case, I think a slightly smaller team makes sense, 4 to 6 people. If you have specialization, so let's say you have a split between front end and back end engineers, and perhaps you might even have multiple technology splits. So you might have, let's say, front end JavaScript engineers, say like a Ruby middleware API engineer or engineers, and then you may have say Python backend engineers that do some backend system which interfaces with the Ruby API. In that case, you can have a larger team because you have a natural separation with the specialization. So perhaps you could have a team of 9 where you have 3 front-end engineers, 3 Ruby engineers, and 3 Python engineers. Why not to go below 4? Will Larson talks about this in his article. If you go much below 4, there isn't much need for management, and you don't really have a team. What tends to happen is you just start going to individuals. So it's more like a few individuals that happen to be working on the same project. And I've certainly found that myself. And on the upper bound, if you go much larger, so let's say you go above 10, the team tends to naturally splinter into groups. It's hard to get, for example, 16 people all working on the same project or working in the same sprint. It's hard to even have to get a backlog big enough with a single product manager. So you just naturally start to split into two teams. And the final thing I wanted to talk about was the balance between, or the team composition between junior to senior engineers. I've read that Netflix, for example, only hire senior engineers. So you might think that filling the team with the most senior engineers possible would make the most productive team. Personally, I haven't found that. I think teams work best when there's a good balance of junior, mid-level and senior engineers. For example, if you have a team of 6, a good balance might be 1 or 2 junior engineers, 2 to 3 mid-level engineers, and then 1 to 2 senior engineers, or 2 senior engineers. And the reason for this is senior engineers typically want greater control over the architecture, more decision making, and they want to teach and share their knowledge with newer members of the team. And so by having that good balance, senior engineers get what they want. They're able to develop. Mid-level engineers are more easily able to progress to senior engineers. And then also you have a good pipeline through your company where you can bring in junior engineers and train them up effectively. So that's it for today. Just wanted to share some thoughts on team size and team composition. I hope you found that useful. Thanks for listening.